and welcome to our second episode of You Are Where You Need to Be podcast. And we are going to talk about the power of reflection, self-reflection, and starting.
Self-awareness.
Yes. What are your personal experiences with self-reflection?
Well, that's a tricky question because I think through my whole life, I've been always analyzing every situation I've been going through. The differences between being an analytical person and self-awareness is that you don't really know sometimes what's happening between you and why are you feeling in a certain way or why are you reacting in a certain way. And maybe you are analyzing it in the wrong way. You are interpreting it in the wrong way. And you are deep diving into something which will mislead you. So that's why some sort of self-awareness, in my opinion, is always needed to be able to reflect on everything what's happening to you in the most beneficial way. And what is it for you?
Yeah, thinking about it, the self-awareness and intellectualizing are not really the same thing. And I do recall intellectualizing all the time, which is literally not being able to feel my feelings and just trying to find a meaning to whatever is happening to my body, to my mind for a longer time. Yes, an explanation. Why is that happening? What is causing that instant? And just recently I realized that, and I learned that people intellectualize because they don't know their own feelings, because they're not feeling it really. And some reaction is coming out through their body and they sense something. And we are human beings, still curious. We want to know what's causing it, but that's never going to solve it. And this also causes overthinking and rumination about things that we might think it is, but the lack of self-knowledge that comes from self-awareness and studies, therapy, and so on, the lack of knowledge is not really helping us to be more self-aware. I do remember trying to reflect on things, why they happen. I've been always curious about how people behave, how other people behave, but I didn't really, after a while, I started to look into myself as well. But I just wanted to understand why people treat me or not treat me, but they behave the way they behave. So I can adjust my feelings kind of to be okay with it. And that's kind of intellectualizing it and not self-awareness. So that's my experience with it, I think.
Yeah, because for self-awareness, you actually need to spend a lot of time with getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
Getting to know how you are built up, what is causing all of your functions, because it's basically rooting back to childhood. How do you react in certain situations? Why? What are your triggers? What kind of emotions are you feeling in certain situations? And the problem is that it is a long way to go to understand where are you coming from and what are you exactly doing. And to be able to control it or to give yourself slack, so to say, you have to get into situations repeatedly. Because you will always react in the same way, in my opinion, in similar situations. So in the beginning, when you don't really pay attention to it, it is just coming naturally. For example, you're having a discussion with somebody, you have a misunderstanding. And if in the past, when this happened with you and you had a certain reaction for it, you will just going to repeat it until you realize why are you doing it, and maybe it's not the best way to handle it. But I don't know if you have any kind of experiences on your own which you can bring up.
Yeah, it is. I think besides being aware, self-aware that you are getting triggered, you start to also feel your feelings. You also have to learn new tools on how to handle that situation. It's not really like controlling in my opinion, it's like how to handle it, because I used to try to control it, but then the result was like I got really frustrated, or yes, that was the word I used to use, because I couldn't even identify my own feelings. And I just felt this vibration and frustrated. So we also have to learn to how to handle our nervous system's reaction to those situations, how to self-regulate, how to communicate our needs. And if we don't know that, and a lot of coaches, books, schools, online schools can help people doing that, but some people eventually find it on their own. I wasn't one of them. And yeah, without those tools, I think it's really hard to stop. I did start to stop, but then I started to equip the other wrong tools, because I just didn't know. I didn't have an idea how else I could do it. So I kind of fall into the other side of the case. And it still wasn't healthy. It still wasn't good for me, because, for example, I used to like explode. I used to complain a lot because my needs weren't met, which, by the way, I wasn't even aware of. But this is how people tend to kind of, let's say, communicate when their needs are not being met, is they constantly bring up the same issue, but you don't know how to solve it. And then eventually I would get a shame wound, because, for example, that relationship ended and I believe that was my fault. Because of the shame, I would start to reflect on myself, but not with the right angle and tools. And I would try to suppress those things that was told to me were causing the problems. And it still did not work out in other relationships, because it's just simply not the healthy way.
But I know what you mean. But weren't you falling into the trap whenever relationship ended to start to analyze the other person's behaviors instead of yours? For
I
example,
did not.
you always analyzed yours.
Yeah. What was you were analyzing the other person?
All the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I acknowledged the problems what I caused. I was always aware. Usually I'm aware even when it happens after like a few seconds, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that or shouldn't have said that, but I never go back to it usually. And if something ends, the first thing what I do is to start to find a solution for the other person, even if they are not a part of my life anymore. Like, okay, so what caused it? Let's deep dive into the other person's personality and the other person's issues and why the other person did this and that. And what is the deep source of the other person's insecurities and problems and etc., etc. And I spent so much time with that. And only after I think I finished that topic completely and I understood their perspective and why they did that, then I start to look at mine. And usually it's a much shorter time period. Not anymore, but in the past it was always like that.
Yeah. Okay. I understand what you mean. I think I misunderstood. I did do that, but I did that during the time period I was with that person, to justify their behavior, kind of, or explain it, because that's what I was used to, that a certain person treats me in a certain way. And since my teenage years, or probably it started much earlier, but it wasn't conscious, I would be looking at this person. Okay, why do they do this and that? And I do recall at workplaces and just in general life, like so-called difficult people would first treat me in a way like everyone else, if that makes sense. But then I very quickly would look at them. Okay, what can be the reason behind? So I didn't judge them. I didn't try to judge them. I wanted to understand them. But
yeah, me too.
That kind of caused me, okay, I understand them. And I also allowed them to keep treating me that way, because I didn't know, I wasn't aware that I shouldn't, or it's not healthy, because that was the norm in general life. Like, this person is like that, just accept that. And you have to mold yourself around them, or some other people would just keep a big wall between them. But that I
But you
didn't.
understand
Yeah.
now, so you are
Yes.
trying
Yeah.
to be
Yeah. I'm
showing up even more because
exact.
for sure nobody else did. And now you will, because you
Yes.
took so much time and so much energy to
Yes.
understand what's going on with them. So you're not going to let go just at some point after so much work. But the
Yeah.
problem is that we are doing this and we miss the point of
Yeah.
why we are letting it, why we are analyzing others instead of ourselves, and where does it lead us at the end? Because then we are also going to just do the same mistakes over and over again because we didn't take the time actually to practice self-awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a people pleasing part, I think, that we try to make up an excuse, or not make up, because it is a reason why they behave the way they behave, but it's not a reason to treat us the way they treat us. And we shouldn't accept and allow that to happen. But that was never shown to us. So I would experience from different people their affection or expressing that they appreciate me more, because I would look behind these reasons and not judge them. And because of this experience, I would keep doing that. And I would believe that this is what I have to do in order to win someone over. And this was not really conscious. This was just, oh, yes, you are such a complex person and I have to understand you. And then once you see how much I understand you, you will so much love me and accept me.
Yeah.
And that's not how things work, actually.
And it's not getting you into being more self-aware at
No,
all.
no, 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 no. It's just the more people pleaser, and my needs are actually not being met. So I'm suffering. I'm keep giving away myself. And I would still like reflect on myself, and I would change on my behavior. I would become more communicative because I would realize I haven't been expressing myself properly, or I haven't raised issues and things like that. But there is a much, much, much deeper reason why things are keep repeating. And why I thought I chose different type of people, but in the end, it was all the same, because we are not in the knowledge of our own needs and how a healthy relationship should look like, and how we should communicate, and any of the essential parts of a relationship for which two people are needed, equally met at the same level, and reciprocating the connection. And until I wasn't aware of that, and I didn't also get hurt because I started to learn about this, but until you don't truly experience everything that you need to learn, you don't understand. And people would tell me how to set boundaries, that they are not reciprocating, that your needs are not being met. But you need to go through this and learn it. And now that I see people have their own needs that needs to be met in a relationship. For example, you wish to have physical touch very often, which is like love languages should match kind of, or learn to speak the other person's love language. Because if they don't, then you constantly feel
Unappreciated.
something, yes, unappreciated, something is missing. You wish to have quality time. You wish to have deep conversations. You wish to communicate openly. Self-awareness is a need that you want, self-growth in a relationship, and you would like to have from your partner. You would like to be included into their life, which is all, they all sound normal to me, to be fair, and healthy. But as long as you are not aware of these things, what you want, you keep choosing something that is familiar from your childhood, because we have learned that sample, how you were treated, how your parents were treating each other. And that's all you know. So it's a love language in a way. You learn how love looks like, even if it's in very bad cases, the father beats up the mother. That's what becomes the love language and how love should look like for a child. And then when they grow up, that's what they become familiar with. And that's what they see. That's why they tolerate it, because that's what they know. They go out and then, oh, this person does this. They must love me. This is not this conscious. It's very deep instinct, because it's like if someone would speak healthy love to them, they wouldn't understand it. They wouldn't even recognize it. A lot of people, for example, avoidance as well, they don't really recognize and they cannot accept and appreciate healthy love, because that's not what they know love is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. We are all coming from different places. We all grew up in a certain environment. And based on that, we all build up expectations, so to say. And we also come with packages of what we accept, what we think is normal, what we don't like, and so on and so on. And until we realize that our way is not the only way, and we also don't always communicate the best way possible. And it can be about anything. It doesn't need to be a relationship. It can be friendship. It can be work relationship. It can be any kind of interaction, actually, because it can come up anywhere. It's just we need to understand ourselves. Why are we communicating this way? Why are we having these expectations? Why do we allow certain behaviors? We start to dig a little bit deep. We go back to the roots. And as you said, we look back at our parents or our caregivers, how they were treating us, how we grew up, what kind of environment was it. And we repeat and repeat the patterns, and we expect from people who cannot give us what we are actually looking for, a certain type of love or certain type of care, because we don't understand we are not even looking at it in the right place.
Yeah. And why is it not the right place? Because even where we learned it from, it wasn't the right way.
No.
But that's what we carry on in our life. And we keep trying to change people to give us the healthy love we imagine, but also from the wrong person, which we don't recognize until it's too late and we get really, really hurt.
Yeah. Because the thing is that I don't think many of us come out from our homes as adults prepared for adult life, actually prepared how a healthy partnership or how healthy communication should look like. Let's say it's still the minority, unfortunately. So we all bring our own baggages. We were all raised in a different but also similar ways. And that's our skill set, basically, we are working at in the beginning.
Our toolbox with little broken, not working screwdriver and missing tools and broken tools. And then we go there and try and fix a screw with a hammer. And we are like, why is this not working?
Yes. And the problem is that people tend to look at the other person to blame somebody instead of instantly looking in the mirror like, okay, maybe they did me nasty. Maybe they mistreated me, but
why did I choose them?
Yeah. This was there from almost the beginning. There were signs. They were, look, every person communicates who they are in the first few sentences. You just don't pay enough attention because you are not experienced yet. So you don't pay attention. You idolize people. You want to project into them what you want to see or what you would do. And actually, those kind of expectations lead to disappointments at the end, because you don't choose people to surround you based on what you really, really want.
Yeah.
Because
and
you don't even know yourself.
Actually, because very often we want something that is not what we actually need. But also, I don't really remember when I was really young about red flags. But maybe like high school, I don't remember red flags. It just happened. It's so long ago. But after that, there were like very clear signs that I would notice, but because I did not know about them, I did not know they were there. It felt weird, but because our needs are constantly working, our subconscious mind to meet our needs, to meet a partner who has these needs that we want to be met, we are just pushing and overlooking these signs. They are always there. Every time I remember back to my interaction with men and boys, they were there. And I even would like a little bit of voice talking to me that was probably my inner like gut, and I would just ignore it because.
Can you tell me examples? Just a few, because I'm sure that you also have some things which you heard repeatedly, so you really know what are those which for you are red flags, for example.
There were different ones for it, I think, for some of them, but let's look at inconsistency as one of the common ones and the biggest one. I believe that I would just overlook trying to explain that, oh, they are just busy, they are overwhelmed. And it was there, but it felt like I kept telling myself, if I can send a message, let the other person know that I'm okay or I'm interested, I would like to talk or have a call. It doesn't take much time. And I just couldn't believe deep inside that the other person would not have that time to spare for me if I can. And also I would hear from different directions that, oh, but maybe their communication style is different. Be just patient, and understanding, and maybe talk this out with them. But then some of them wouldn't be even receptive of talking about anything like this, or they would just dismiss it. They would just say, oh, sorry, I don't even know why not. So that's very impossible to work with. And I wouldn't be self-aware at all to know that whatever I'm feeling and hearing inside is actually legit. I should be listening to it, because our previous episode, we were talking about self-gaslighting. I thought I mastered it to the top level. So I would just tell myself all kinds of reasons and no, maybe they are not interested, you're not good enough, or they're just busy or anything. And my feelings, I should be okay with it. It doesn't matter. How can I find a way to feel okay about this so I can keep this contact with this person?
Going. Yeah. And that's part of self-gaslighting, and it's showing little self-awareness. Yeah. Unfortunately, which really is a hard way to learn, because you have to face yourself. And I think that's the hardest thing to do. That's why a lot of people don't do it, because it's easier to blame outer circumstances than to acknowledge that we are the ones causing our own suffering, so to say, and to really deep dive into your own faults. Like, for example, let's say you are having a trigger over something. Something happened to you a long time ago. Like somebody cheated on you, let's say. So that's a deep-rooted wound which you are having. You probably never heal from it because you didn't take the time. Maybe you jumped right into another relationship. You were just busy with anything else, work, hobbies, friendships, family, whatsoever. You were just not busy trying to heal that wound. So you have this insecurity which you're carrying with you because of the cheating, and you will project that insecurity to the next person probably you are going to meet. And if there is any, let's say, minor indication that they might be unfaithful, you are going to react so harshly, so out from your triggers, not from your logical and collected self, but from emotion, which is like, oh, I'm going to kill you. I cannot believe this is happening to me. And you just gotta jump on them and put that all out. And they're like, oh, whoa, what are you doing? What's happening? And it might also scare them. So that's a trigger. And I've seen it so many times that people operate from triggers. I've seen it not just from myself, but from other people too.
Yeah.
And yeah, in others, it's of course easier to see because that's not you.
Yeah.
So your observation skills are higher in that matter. Like, okay, she's a little bit too sensitive about this topic. I didn't mean to hurt her. I didn't mean to insult her, but she kind of reacted that way, which is annoying. Okay, I don't understand why. And, it builds up from these small little things.
Yeah.
And you only going to start working on it when it's bothering you so much and it's causing you so many failed relationships.
Yeah.
That you don't have anything else to do but to face it. Like, okay, I don't want to repeat this anymore. I don't want to feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Why am I reacting like this? And with women, we also unfortunately need to know which time of the month are we reacting to what, because our mood swings are much more frequent than it is for men.
Yes, that was an interesting lesson for me as well. First, I recognized it with a female friend of mine. We kind of clashed one time, and at the time I was already trying to start to pay attention to how my body reacts, because it was I think it was around COVID time, so I spent way too much time at home. So all the vibrations and everything, which was very good for me, because before I was probably more distracted by whatever hobbies I was doing or going out or anything. And I didn't really pay attention to that. But all the restrictions that came with COVID helped me notice things about myself. And I started to pay attention to it and start to track and analyze myself, test things. And yes, it is legit, but it would be really still helpful for women if men didn't use this as a weapon, because it's not something that we do maliciously. And it's really something that requires understanding from the other side as well. But I can see how this seems ultra hyper emotional, but it does changes our judgment. It does change how we look at things, how we feel about things. So this would definitely require understanding from men and other female members of our environment, because it is influencing relationships.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say, that men like to weaponize it, but I think women too. I mean, there are many times when we act out because of that. And at the end, we are like just blaming it on having it. And okay, I understand it completely that it's really different at those times and it's really harder to navigate, and you are really much more irritable. But eventually you start to tame it, so to say, if you know what I mean. Like, if you had enough bad days and you know what is coming and when it is coming, what irritates you at that point, what calms you at that point, then you cannot always do it, of course, because people work, people do this, people do that. But in general, you can always try to navigate through it and just take that extra effort to calm yourself down.
Yeah, I think that's what it takes. And that's somewhere part of self-awareness in that level, which is about your body, how it works, and anything literally. Once you're aware that this is happening to you, then you can pay more attention to it. You can start to try and wrap your head around it and have like your tentacles grab it and understand and see what it is and what you can do with it. And until you don't notice, like we are just working in autopilot. I remember I had for long years, I feel like I was just working in autopilot. Whatever I brought from home, I was just keep using that and doing that automatically and never even questioned it. Only once it started to really give me hurt.
What was it?
Anything, any experience, anything that I learned, my behavior, my way of handling things. And then it would create shame around it, because I wouldn't definitely maybe consciously notice that what I'm doing is making people react in a certain way. And it doesn't feel good. I just felt like, yeah, this is how it's been happening. It's normal. But then eventually I started to look at it and think about it, because it felt weird. It felt wrong. And I started to notice why that happened. For example, if I really strongly expressed myself about an opinion or a topic, or someone was trying to highlight something that I did wrong, or I should change in my behavior or anything, I would just attack them back. Typical, not really self-aware person's reaction. And then they would go silent, usually. And I was convinced that I did win the battle. I did all my goodies there, and I'm the winner. But no, that's not what it is. And eventually I started to notice that, and it gave me this deep shame wound. Yeah, that's what I meant by it started to hurt me, because that wasn't even like relationship. It was just generic interaction with people.
Yeah, but that's what I said, that it can be actually anything. It can be just
exactly
how our motoric functions work, so to say. Like really, because most of the time we don't really think how exactly are we shaping words or how we communicate. It's just coming out in a way what we got used to. Of course, we think about in situations how we talk with certain people, because the environment dictates which kind of behavior we are going to act on and which communication style we are using. So this is not what I meant when I say that we kind of behave and communicate in a motoric way, so to say. But in general, that you don't really have to make an effort to communicate, because it's yours. You have it, you shaped it. I don't know if you know what I mean.
You don't have to. Can you elaborate this? Like, how do you mean that you don't have to make an effort to communicate?
Like, for example, at the moment I'm talking to you, I don't really need to think about how to talk to you, like in what voice tone to talk to. These are just coming in an automatic way.
I really love that. Was this always for you like that?
I think so.
Okay, because for me it wasn't.
Really?
Yeah, I really struggled to have like a basic conversation with people that didn't revolve around complaining about other people, for example. That I could talk about, but any other complex communication, expressing my own feelings, unless it was an outburst of my anger, which I didn't even know it was anger. It was like an explosion, because I never knew how to communicate my own feelings and needs and how to process them, until the point they exploded, because I kept keeping it inside. And I didn't know how to ask for help, how to talk and mention anything, how to raise issues. Over time, with experiences with the failed relationships, I was, after what we talked in the beginning, that was my part. After the relationship, I was reflecting, what did I do wrong? So during I was analyzing them, and then after I was analyzing myself. And then I would try and come up on my own clumsy way with new ways of handling things and communication. Maybe, okay, next time I have to be more patient, or I have to raise issues and express if I have some problems with something. And so for me, this was not natural. This was many years of struggle and hurt and pain, and facing and trying to change other people in the meanwhile as well, and not seeing that I keep choosing the same type of people as well. So yeah, now that I'm able to express whatever is on my thoughts at that moment, is that years of practicing. And yeah, it's not like that for everyone. And I can see, but a couple of my ex-boyfriends were like what I described in the beginning, that they just weren't in tune with their emotions, with their own needs. They are not even aware of them. They don't know. One of them weren't able even to tell me what is wrong with them. It's a typical answer from avoidant people. And as I discussed last time, I think that I do believe that I'm coming from a more avoidant background and the spectrum. So I used to be more avoidant, which is very typical that we are not in tune with our own needs, what we want. And we are also struggling with communication and wording. What is it that's wrong? And that's why we explode. That's why we struggle. So yeah, that's how it's been.
What you mentioning that your ex-boyfriends were not in tune with their feelings, I think for men in general, it's still very hard because they are still not raised in a way to communicate their feelings. Men always need to be the tough ones. They always need to go out and handle things and just repress everything they are feeling because we don't talk about feelings here. Feelings are gay. And unfortunately, it still shows. And I'm really sad about this because I've seen it so many times that we could have discussed certain situations or we could have deep dive into certain things, but they didn't have the tools to look into why they are feeling what they do. And they were just acting on it, whatever it was going on with them. They call it logic, which is very interesting.
That's the intellectualization, what you mentioned, the logic.
Which is,
that's what I used to do as well. It didn't feel logical to me why my partner wants me to hug him. For example, it doesn't feel logical. Like, why are you asking me? I don't feel like that. I understand more men because men in general are more avoidant because of the exact same reason you just described. Unfortunately, they did not get that freedom of expressing their and feeling their emotions.
Yeah.
So now I understand that more. Yeah. But it's not helping our relationships.
I think it's creating a really big gap, especially lately. That's what I noticed because yes, I have examples when I had guys in my life who could handle my emotional side, and women are emotional, so there is you can't really get away with being more expressive in that matter. But many guys are afraid of that, or they just interpret it as unnecessary drama because they don't know what to do with it. They've never been taught what to do with it. And even if you explain to them, they are not sure that that's the correct way to approach it. So it's really hard, yeah.
No.
But that's also a part of self-awareness, I think, and deep diving into get to know ourselves. It's not. It should be really beneficial for everybody because we all see each other sometimes as enemies, and we all label each other in all type of ways, which is crazy. We all want to see each other in a certain way who doesn't fit into our picture. There must be something wrong with them, never us. Like, I'm not talking just about myself, but that's what I see everywhere.
Yeah.
I meet people and all I hear is, yeah, all my exes were crazy, or yeah, I've been struggling in all my friendships because they were all stupid. Like, this is a simple way to say it, of course, but I've seen it so many times. And what I liked about myself, about this people-pleasing side of me, that even if somebody did me wrong, as I often analyzed it after, I understood why they did it. Of course, it still made me mad and they still made me disappointed and I didn't want them in my life anymore. But I understood. Yeah. Because I listened, I listened to their stories. I seen what kind of environments they grew up in, what they brought from there. So it was hard for a long time not to take it personal. And I took it personal, of course, even though I understood it. But at the moment, it's hard for me to take anything personal, even if it hurts me. Because everything is just a matter of perspective.
What do you mean by the matter of perspective?
Like from whose glasses you are looking through. If it's because let's say that we have an argument, right? Which I cannot imagine anyway. But let's say, and we misunderstand each other, and we go back to our core wounds. We start to operate from there, from our, so to say, inner child, and we don't really see through why the other person said what they said or what they meant by it. We just interpret it how we want.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'm telling you a story that today it was so stressful. I went to the grocery store and everybody was so irritable and I hate people. Why are they there? Everybody was just there. That's my perspective because I was mad, right?
Yeah.
And then you remember from early on that I mentioned that my period is coming. And you just tell me, yeah, but cannot it be because you are going to have your period and you just see everything from a more stressful way and it's not the people, actually it's you? And then I'm like, so you are not taking my side? So you are talking against me? That's what you are saying? And then you also get into like, no, this is not, you understand where I'm going.
Yeah.
So based on an argument which is escalating through who knows where, at the end, we just hang up the phone and I'm going to think I'm right and you're going to think you are right. At least at the start.
Yeah.
Because that's how always everybody is. Like,
Yes.
yeah, but my watch is so rude. Yeah, but why did she tell me this? And
Yeah.
you need self-awareness to start to think through why you reacted that way or why the other person reacted that way. And if you both have self-awareness, you can go through it in your head and together actually to discuss it like, yeah, I'm sorry, you must be right. I had these days and I'm a bit more irritable and I understand what you meant and I'm sorry for how I lashed out on you. I didn't want to do it. So if you really want to have a clean closure of the argument, you need self-awareness. You need to understand that when were you wrong or when were you right?
Yes. The way in the beginning you started to describe, I kind of understood what you mean is that depends on everyone's opinion, what is right, which is not true because what is right is what is right. It doesn't make people's opinion doesn't make things right. People can have opinion, but it's not the same. What is right is based on values and other points that is like, yes, I can think that I went out to murder some people and it's right. I do believe in that, but it's not a point of view question, if that makes sense.
Somebody will call the police now.
Yes, and it is true for etiquettes and ethics and things like that. That is, we didn't grow up with the understanding that what feels wrong is really truly wrong. And it doesn't become right because someone told you it is right. So yeah, that's what I thought you are, like the glasses you mean. But I understand, yes, people can view things differently. But in the end, everything I do believe has either wrong or right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, because lashing out on somebody is usually never the correct way. Even though we are human, it's going to happen sometimes. We cannot always control our behavior. But what matters is acknowledging it and possibly not repeating it.
Yeah.
So it's also not okay if I apologize to you, but at the end I'm going to repeat this over and over again.
Exactly.
Because that apology actually is empty. It means nothing.
Yeah. And it's not going to make it right.
Yes, eventually no. But if you really acknowledge what you did wrong, you apologize for it and you talk it through, then you can just move on from it.
That's building connection between people, showing vulnerability. It's incredible how you can build connections like that. And a lot of people miss out on building connections because they never actually acknowledge that they were wrong and show vulnerability this way. And it doesn't have to be about being wrong, really. It's just to show their true self and see how they caused something to you, being able to like show up for you that here I am, how can we work this differently?
It's actually the same thing. What you mean, the point is that if we are self-aware, we have the tools to be able to work through difficult situations or disagreements, even if it's not right where it's happening, not at the spot, but after.
Yeah.
And you have to be vulnerable. You have to express what caused this situation for you. And you have to take the blame away from the other person, and you have to put it on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I was wrong in this because I was hurt by what you said. And then you can step in like, yeah, I understand you were hurt. I'm sorry, but this is not how I meant, because I meant like that. Just unfortunately, communication is hard.
Yeah.
Communication is really not easy. And many people are exhausted by it. Like, they don't think this is something which they should take their time for, and they just directly want to forget about it or move on from it or close that chapter. And if, for example, the other person is not ready for it yet, then it can irritate them. And it can show up in very ugly forms too, like starting to play games, start trying to give back to the other person what you think they gave you. In a negative way. So for all this, you really need to have self-accountability and for that self-awareness.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is people actually avoid it because I don't really know why this comes from, probably ancient times, but us human beings try to survive the easiest way possible, to use the least energy possible to survive and live through and then produce next generations. So why would we stop and spend so much energy uncovering hurtful feelings when it was okay before? Like, it's the comfortable uncomfort that people are in and they are not even aware of. It's like the little frog sits in the very hot water, which is not boiling yet, but it's like that. But because it's been like that forever for them, that's what they know. They don't feel the need because they're not dead yet, and that's what they know. They can't even imagine, because they can't see outside of the pot, that there is another world, that there could be a fresh water pond outside where they could swim with other healthy frogs and so on.
The frog is a cute way of saying I love frogs, by the way.
Oh, they're really cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is pain that makes change, pain that prevents change in a lot of people, because they just don't take the power to look into things because it's way too painful. And also, when you try to explain things, because I would like to reflect to that, as you mentioned, when you try to explain to them how they treated you, how this affected you, they cannot understand this because they haven't yet uncovered it. They haven't yet experienced it the way you experienced it. That's why for them, I have personal experiences where I would not feel my feelings the same way as my ex-partner did. And when he would explain, this is why it doesn't work. Like, at some point, we have to communicate with the other person, but we also have to recognize whether they are at that level to understand what we are trying to communicate. Because if you explain that the way you are, you triggered me, because somewhere we do need to mention when they trigger us, because if they keep repeating the same thing, even though it's our trigger, we have to resolve it. But if they still keep repeating it, it's not helping us. It's not a harmonious relationship there. And if they just keep doing it on autopilot, or they don't consider it because it doesn't hurt them, so they don't understand, then it's a big problem there. And if it extends to other areas of the relationship where lacking of the understand of your emotional well-being, then it's really a big incompatibility issue. And I was in the belief that if I explain myself much better, so over the years, I learned that I need to be more expressive. I need to explain more what triggers me. I started to be aware of my triggers as well. But I failed to recognize that the other person is not there. It's not there to be able to experience it. And when I was there where they are or were, I would feel also frustrated by the other person mentioning it because I didn't understand what it is. Why are you bothering me with this? Why do you, if I'm good like this, if I don't require every day a hug or something like that, then why are you wanting me things to do that? So that's something again about being able to see in yourself what is it that you need from a relationship and whether the other person is self-aware enough to be able to experience those things that you've already been through or somehow recognize it. But I don't really truly believe that those people who haven't experienced that kind of need or hurt or trigger, if they haven't lived it, they will not fully understand it. But self-awareness, I think, could still provide an emotional maturity with a support of like an emotional blanket that they may not truly understand, but they understand that this is important to you, and being able to somewhat place themselves into your shoes and make changes towards.
But that's also empathy. That's another layer.
I think that comes with self-awareness as well. Not in cases, but it can help.
It can help a lot in every situation, of course, but it's another completely different skill set to learn. And you can be self-aware, but you don't need to have empathy.
I can't imagine that.
You can because you are both, but it's really like that. You don't necessarily have empathy, but you're self-aware.
I think that is, you are aware of certain skill sets that you have, but that's not the true self-awareness of who you are, your higher self. True self-awareness is when you really feel everything and you know everything, you understand the other person. I know what you mean. I have met people, I thought they are self-aware because they could list out a lot of things. They behave, they're like that and so on, but they would still lack the empathy to understand you. But that's not full self-awareness. It's just, I was also aware of, okay, I have these explosions, but I was unable to change it. With full self-awareness, you know how to change those behaviors, you know where they come from, what you were also explaining in the beginning, and you know the tools you have learned, the new tools, how to make changes. And I cannot agree with that. Self-aware people grow empathy because they understand what it takes to arrive there, to be self-aware. And without empathy, how can you be self-aware fully?
Because you still can know what you are doing wrong and why you are behaving a certain way. But to be empathetic means that you can, as you really nicely put in words, you can put yourself in another person's shoes. But to be self-aware, you don't need to put yourself in another person's shoes.
So could we agree on a scale? Because I do feel that it's like that everything is not black and white. And I do believe that there is a point at self-awareness where you will have the empathy and you will have also the self-awareness to have empathy towards other people, to say, yes, I feel you, but I'm going to let you go. And there is self-awareness, what you mentioned, which probably somewhere in the middle where you're not fully, entirely functioning blindly. Like, for example, when you come out from your family home and then just automatically doing everything the way you learned to. But you are kind of, no, you have this bullet point list that this is how I function, but also not self-aware yet enough to know that this is optional. This is not written in stone. You can change that to words to learn to understand the other person and feel their feelings and feel how they are functioning. I think nothing is black and white.
No, of course. I just said that there are people who are empathetic but self-aware. So that's also in the scale, in my opinion. Of course, I wish everybody had empathy, but that's a skill which is also hard to learn, so to say. If you're not having empathetic parents who can already show you from the beginning how it is, and then you have to learn it later, it can be difficult.
That's also quite a mixture of, like, I just saw a video on Instagram, I think, that was someone was asking a question. It's like, hey y'all, how do you function in life if your parents, like, what kind of parents did you have if you are so kind and nice and empathetic and so on? And then the next cut was, we had the horrible kind, because that's why became the way we are, because we don't want to other people experience what we experienced. So we will do everything and we will feel their feelings. We will be empathetic towards them because our parents weren't. So that's also an interest.
That's also very interesting, because I could say it's also not always the case. If somebody has horrible parents, can also turn into a horrible person themselves.
Yeah.
I still have a very empathetic parents, so I turned out to be that way, which I don't mind at all. I had people and caregivers in my environment who had zero empathy, of course, but my mother and father, they are. So I think I learned it from them. But it's also true that many people, they just didn't want to be the same what they had to go through as a kid and they had to experience. So they completely turned to the other direction.
Yeah.
But for that, you need to have a certain amount of strength, I think.
Yeah.
And to be able to look into the mirror, which we also discussed. Because if you blame outer circumstances all the time, then you probably will turn out not so great either. At the end.
Yeah, I think our mind is just so complex and it's never full. Like, there are options what can come out from a certain type of family, and those options can happen. It's never always the same case, and each case can vary, can have gradients in it. It's overlapping. It's always on a scale, because our mind is just so complex. And also, I do believe that a lot of people, they grow up with some kind of picture that they would like to themselves to be, and they just keep talking about that picture, even to themselves.
You mean a mask?
It's not a mask. They wear it as a mask, but it's their identity. It becomes their identity because somewhere in their childhood they couldn't be themselves, or there was no one to nurture their true self, and they just had to, in order to survive, make up some kind of character that they are. And over time it becomes so strong that I call it like they painted this picture for themselves, their self-portrait, and they keep looking at it instead of looking into a mirror. And they keep adding details over time, and then this painting becomes just bigger and bigger, and then they believe it and they just keep looking at it. They then don't look anywhere else. And if you were to put a mirror in front of them, they would see how much they neglected themselves, kind of like they got old, really ugly, because they didn't look after themselves. And I'm not just definitely talking about actual physical look, but their mentality, their feelings and everything they don't even recognize. And it's so scary to look at. Just trying to give it a visual example. It's so scary to look at it that they would break that mirror immediately, like in a horror movie or something like that.
Yeah.
And even the mirror is just a reflection of ourselves. So we have to arrive to a self-aware state where we are actually seeing ourselves, literally, like kind of like standing in front of ourselves as a guidance or something. But even a mirror can have like different lightings and ugly points, and then you are mirrored, literally. So it's not an easy process at all. And if people tend to choose the easy way out, and that's breaking the mirror, not looking into it and just keep building their own world.
Yeah, I guess it's because life is hard enough in itself and they don't want to put the extra work into doing this type of extra task as well.
Yeah. I mean, it is way much more exhausting and grabbable, for example, than finding a job, growing crops, issues with goods that you're growing or stock animal or anything. Those are very visible. You can find the source of it. You can find the reason what's causing the problem and solve it. But this is so, like, just in my own experience, that I didn't even realize that I'm not being able to feel my feelings. Is I understand how people miss it out, how people are not able to grab it and wrap their head around it, because it's so, like, you can't touch it.
Yeah, that's why also a different kind of person or idea of you lives in each person's head who you ever meet with or you ever interact with, because it also depends on what they project into you, how they see you,
Yeah.
and what you are communicating towards them.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can also say, I can say with 100% certainty that in some people I met, even though I always had, in my opinion, the best intentions, the villain in their story anyways, because they wanted to see me that way. It's easier for them.
Do you know why? Because you were the mirror.
Probably. And I also like to say harsh truths, which people don't like, so can be about that as well.
That's that. People don't like the truth and looking into that mirror, because then it's going to reveal how ugly they became and they don't want to look at it at all. And if it represents as a person in your character, then they're going to hate that and blame you for that. But it has nothing to do about you. It's just their own lack of self-reflection. Yeah.
Exactly. I think whenever it doesn't work out with somebody, it always have to do with the people involved. Like, it's never that easy that you were a bad person or you were a good person or you were this, you did that, you did that. No, because if all people in the party were self-aware, probably they could still be in touch, because they could have walked through the issue and communicate about it and understand the point of each other. Mm-hmm. But it was easier to blame and to disappear or to put an end to it.
Yeah. But that again comes from the learned behavior that we all brought from home, the lack of broken tools or even missing, most of the time missing tools.
Yes.
That they just do. And that's what they learn, to blame the other person, and never anyone took accountability in their relationship with their family. So they don't even have the idea about it. So, or maybe that was a more dominant person who would kind of behave like getting the accountability out of other people, but then it's just more of a giver and taker situation where one people would give in just to keep the peace, and it would look like they take the accountability and they were the wrong, when in the case the other person was wrong, but they were more aggressive to make it look like the other way around.
Yeah, that's also an interesting topic, actually.
So many topics to talk about.
Yes. But I think we kind of can wrap it up about self-awareness. Of course, there is still a lot in this topic to discuss. But if anybody has some stories to share or want to highlight some topics, then we are
any questions about this?
We are very eager to read it or to discuss it further.
And if you are interested in the future topics, please follow us. If you want to share with your friends who you think would be receptive to these topics and have chats about it.
Yes, we are going to have similar conversations about different topics, but all is going to be about self-development, because we both think that is one of the most important things in life. And we'd like to that. Yes, we'd like to spread the word.
Yes.
So thank you for listening, and let's meet for the next topic.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.